And welcome to today's edition of Dr. Carole's Couch. I'm your psychiatrist host, Dr. Carole Lieberman. Well, we're going to have a very interesting show today. I'm not quite sure what, what's going to happen, but those are always the best shows. Um, my guest has an incredible story, and it's almost too dark to believe, although it has a happy ending since she survived it all. Her name is Juliette Engel. Today's show is called From MK Ultra to Jeffrey Epstein. This woman has seen it all and lives to tell about it. So, Juliette Engel, almost too dark to believe, today's guest, Juliette Engel, author of the controversial memoir Sparky, Surviving Sex Magick, takes us from being sold by her father at 6 years old into the CIA's secret Monarch MK Ultra program, to being sexually abused in Sex Magick, we'll explain what that is, to becoming a physician, to founding the Angel Coalition in Moscow, to rescue sex trafficked children, that's what the Angel Coalition does, to meeting Jeffrey Epstein and fortuitously refusing his offer of employment, and much more in between. So her story will have you on the edge of your chair. Now, welcome to the show, Juliette.
Yeah, when you read it, I wouldn't believe my story either. But it's true, and it's because I'm 77 and done a lot of living.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you the truth. When I first read the bio and the various documents that your publicist sent over, I called him back, and your publicist was great. I've known him for years, but I said, "Is this really true? Have you vetted her? Do you know? Do you believe this?" And he said he did, and that your publisher vetted you, Trine Publisher, and so. Okay, I'm going with it, and we'll see how it goes. Um, I'm very used to one of the things I do as a psychiatrist is not just see patients and treat them, but also I'm an expert witness and forensic psychiatrist. So I'm used to hearing people's stories, and with one like sort of an I don't know what the with one ear open or with one with one raised eyebrow, sort of like checking, like, could this really be true? So I'm going to be doing that, but man, you would have to be very, very mentally ill to go around telling the world this story, and if it weren't true. So I am starting out by thinking that it is. So let's go chronologically because you've done so much that there's no other way to do it really and be able to get it all in an hour. Let's start with where you were born and, your family and how your father, like what kind of person he was to sell you into MK Ultra.
I'm going to start a little before I was born because my
Okay.
story really starts in 1945. I was born in 1949,
Okay.
but in 1945, five of my uncles who were in the CIA, it was OSS at the time, were in Nuremberg, Germany, and they were part of the American team that was evaluating and translating and trying the German criminals. And their task was their group was the scientists and doctors who had been in the concentration camps. So they were dealing with the people who had done the most horrendous experiments in the world, had unlimited access to any population they wanted to experiment on. And their focus was on proving the superior race and evaluating all of the material that had been collected by the Abwehrbande, who is the Nazi group who went around the world, like later Raiders of the Lost Ark, and gathered all the anything that might have mystical properties or mystical provide magic or levitation or anything that expanded our world beyond our world. So you
Mm.
had these scientists, this mass of horrific experimentation that could never be done again because it was unsupervised, unaccountable. You could never repeat it. And you had the CIA there, my uncles, who were all members of secret societies. My great grandfather was the North American commander of Knights Templar, and they were all Shriners, 33rd degree Masons, Rosicrucians, Skull and Bones, you name it. So um, they did not try the scientists. They made a bargain with them, and they looked at these rooms full of material, which would and saw it as a means of unlimited power over the minds of the people of the world, ways to create wealth, uh, and massive control. And the whole purpose of the German research was to create man as God, to prove that a superior man was more powerful than God.
Wow.
And that's we're seeing that now. It's coming right through our society. And the so in 1945, they made a bargain between 1945 and 1947 when the CIA was founded. They made a bargain with these scientists to come to the United States. They would be resettled. Their families were brought over. They were given laboratories. They were given access
Huh.
to American citizens, starting with the CIA's own children. And they were free to experiment, to expand on what the Germans had discovered, and then turn it over to the CIA, who helped them with financing, obtaining drugs, getting
Huh.
LSD by the ton. And so by 1949, they'd been reestablished around the United States. That's when I was born. 1952, my closest uncle started the National Security Agency, the NSA, and they picked up the MK Ultra programs inside the United States. And 1955, I was 6 years old, and my father took me to the park like we were going to a holiday, and met a friend of his there who drugged me with a Coca-Cola. And I woke up being sexually assaulted by men I didn't know. And my head was right next to my father, who was being, they were making a very big point. They were putting $100 bills into his hand and they were purchasing me. And when I screamed for my father, he turned to me and said, "Shut up. This is what I raised you for." And that's this is a pretty common kind of ritualistic abuse by the parents of the children who were then given into the programs. My parents, I don't believe, ever expected me to live. Um, it was either I was going to live and be a superstar. We can get to that later, and or I wouldn't survive, and they would be paid off. So
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
I have a brother, a younger brother.
Did they do that to him too, or no, they just wanted girls?
They took the oldest child, and that applied to all of my cousins' families. And I didn't know this until we were able to contact each other in our 60s
Huh.
and find out that six of us had been sold into the program. And of that number, several had committed suicide, and only three of us were still alive.
Oh wow.
So, but it was the story, and and that sounds amazing. Like, who would ever do this to their family? Who would fund a government agency
Yes,
that would do
yes.
such a thing with citizens? Yeah, but they did. And the reason that I can come forward, and like other survivors are coming forward by the dozens, you're going to
Huh.
see a lot of us coming out, is that the in December of 2024, the CIA released 1,200 unclassified documents that prove all of
Huh.
this, that talk about how they established MK Ultra, who ran it. Who was They appointed Sidney Gottlieb as the head of the MK Ultra program, and he was appointed because he was famous for being the poisoner. He was known as the poisoner of the CIA. And his specialty was mRNA and LSD. So that's something to think about. And there's been
Huh.
books written about that. Um, so and it was started by the Dulles brothers, John Foster Dulles and Alan Dulles, and that's in the documents. So for me, after 70 years of not having any verification, my family denying everything, no proof that this happened, and walking around with this insane story in my head that I didn't want to believe, but I had to believe because it's true. Uh, they came out, it was December 24th, 2024. And I've given you the links to the documents for the show notes so that everybody can look at this. And a second, that took us up to the 1970s, from 1953 when it was started to the 1970s when the Church Commission, this was a Senator Church, had the only hearings that were ever carried out in Congress to investigate MK Ultra, whether this was really happening, and all of these people were brought forward to testify. And then the testimony was all classified, top secret, and a lid was put on the whole process. And then in 1995, Kathy O'Brien came out and testified, and her testimony was classified top secret. Um, but the second tranche of documents came out in October of 2025, and the third tranche was sitting, I'm sure, on Sigurd's desk and was taken by the FBI so that they couldn't release it, because that would take us up to the present time and how this and prove that
Still
this is
going
actually
on.
still going on. And oh, absolutely, absolutely. It has evolved from when I started. It was computers were still called Turing machines. Cybernetics was something they were experimenting with. You know, the idea of implanting devices into people and targeting them electronically was their dream. They wanted to do that. Well, now they're doing it, and I'm working with an organization called Targeted Justice, and they have something like 23,000 Americans who are all victims of targeting through Havana syndrome and various voice to skull transmissions. All of this proven. None of this is it's wacky science, and it's really stupid because it makes no sense to any normal person. But it's being done, and what the overall result is, it's affecting people's minds, and it's affecting our ability to think logically, make intelligent decisions. It's affecting our health. It's affecting our government. But back to 1955, once I was in the program, I spent half my time in my home, such as it was, with my parents and my brother, so that I could grow up in school and like a normal person. They had me targeted from the beginning for being a sex spy, basically. Um, and then the rest of the time was in the annexes where they were experimenting on me and all the other children there with drugs, predominantly LSD. And what people don't realize is that LSD is a precursor to well, I'm sure you know this, a precursor to a lot of the antipsychotic drugs and the antidepressant drugs. And its derivatives are in Prozac. So their goal was to get the entire population on a mood controlling drug that just dumbed people down. Um,
So when you were with the annex, as you said, like, was it like there were other kids? How many kids would you see at one time?
it depended on what the project was. They would take us for different things, and for instance, when I was about 7 was the first time I remember being taken to Disneyland.
Hmm.
And I was living in California at the time, in Laguna Beach, not far from Anaheim. And I I was dropped off by one of my parents and left in the annex and given drugs and woke up in a pretty dress and was taken on a bus load of kids. They didn't give us any food. And so a busload of hungry little kids, and they gave us jelly beans, which had some kind of drugs in them that made us feel really giddy. And they took us to Disneyland, and they dropped us off in different places. And our assignment was to find a daddy to get us breakfast, get us food,
Huh.
and then to get that daddy into, I was dropped in Frontierland, and I was told to get a daddy. Daddy would feed me, and then to get that daddy into the Wild Toad ride, which was one of the rides in the theme park. And in the ride, you it's it's a wild ride, and you're suddenly on railroad tracks. And as you're approaching tracks, you hear a train coming, and you see a bright light, and the light's coming right at you. It keeps coming at you, and what they told me was that I had to get that daddy's hands in bad places so they could take pictures, because the light was actually a camera. And so in that one day, I got two daddies to buy me food, breakfast and lunch, and got them into the Wild Toad ride and got their hands up my skirt at the right moment. And I was allowed back on the bus then to go home. And half the kids didn't make it back on the bus. And they made it clear to us that they'd failed. And like, that had horrifying consequences. I don't know what happened to them, but they terrified us all the time. Like, if you didn't do this, you were going to die. And
Well, like, do the daddies take these kids, to bat? Did they like kidnap the kids?
I don't think they knew what was going on, or they're pedophiles and we entrapped them, or I don't know. Or maybe they were part of the whole setup. But I just wanted the food. Yeah.
Yeah,
Starving kids will do just about anything.
yeah.
And
So
they
you don't know if they use these pictures to what's the word? Like to get them to pay to not have the pictures go anywhere, to get them daddies to pay to, or whether the daddies were part of the program.
I don't know. I don't know. And once I got food, so I wasn't hungry anymore, I felt kind of bad about it. Like, maybe this wasn't a good thing to do, but I got the food.
Uh-huh.
I needed the food. And so, yeah, the training was uh, that kind of thing. And a lot of it did involve the actual killing of children. And um, for instance, the next year, they celebrate Saturnalias instead of the Christmas holiday. Saturnalias are the big festival, big satanic festival to celebrate the birth of Nimrod. And so I was basically grabbed in my home. My parents had gotten me cleaned up and gave me a beautiful peignoir set for Christmas, which I was just so happy with. I put it on, and I didn't realize that it was a trap and a costume. As soon as I had it on, the guys from MK Ultra came and grabbed me and drugged me and threw me in a van with and I was completely drugged. I couldn't move. This was some kind of new drug they were experimenting with. And other kids in the van were screaming and crying, and they were also paralyzed. And they took us to somewhere, and it was a smoky place, dressed up with pine bough, and smelled like cinnamon. and
Mm.
and up to now, I cannot stand the smell of pine and cinnamon. It's just so nauseating. And during the ceremony, all the kids were wearing these filmy peignoirs and running around and being chased by fawns. Fawns, you know, the men dressed up like beings with goats with
Oh,
horns and
yeah.
playing flutes and but everybody there was also drugs. So I mean, we were given drugs all the time. So it was very difficult. And the child's, I'm sure you know this, that a child's mechanism for handling an unbearable situation like that is to leave your body and dissociate. So I write about this in my book as it happened to me, which meant it's from my dissociated point of view, since that's really all I can remember is looking down on myself being sexually molested. But the child on the left of me and the child on the right of me were sacrificed. And I was smeared in the blood of the sacrifice, but I could only see it from above. Um, and the guilt of that event, the fact that they died and I didn't, was for the next 60 years was the hardest thing for me to get past. Like, why did I live and they didn't? Um, I realize now it's because of who my family is. I mean,
Oh.
my family was running this program,
Hmm.
and the other. So I was what they called a goat, and everyone else was a sheep. And this is still going on. The goats are running the country, and the sheep don't matter at all.
Wait, how do you know this? That it's still going on?
Uh, there's it it evolved. I can't go from that age to the still going on part because the evolution was huge. But yeah, it's still going on, and it's the things that were developed in the 50s and 60s, including the Disney, the whole Disney empire, the Disney
Huh.
concept of happily ever after, and showing happy cartoon like things of horrific abuse and murder and damage, and making that acceptable to the population.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but snuff films were part of what we did, and
Now,
so
how did you hold on to your sanity during this time?
dissociation. The
Yeah.
times, well, when I was in school, we moved all the time. So I would come back from an annex. I'd have bruises all over and big circles under my eyes. I had chronic anemia because they were always pulling blood out
Hmm.
of me after their experiments. And the social workers in the school would start coming to our house, and my parents would pack us up at night and we'd move.
Oh, huh.
And at
Because
that
they thought
time,
you were being abused by your parents.
yeah, and they didn't know what was going on. And because it was the 50s, we didn't have computer records or anything. So all they really had to do was move to the next town, the next school
Hmm.
district.
Yeah.
So the records didn't weren't easy to get. They didn't flow. There was no continuity. And I knew from being inside the program that their big plan was to get into all the schools
Mm.
and to get into, get these social work pests out of the way, and get at children in the education system. And
Hmm.
I would put to you that an extension of the MK Ultra program is now the GATE program, GATE, which is gifted and talented enrichment education program. And it's going on right now from kindergarten to through the sixth grade. It's in most schools, and private and public. And each session begins with kids taking a fizzy drink, a pink fizzy drink that no one can tell me what's in it. They don't know what's in it. Teachers don't know what's in it. School administrators don't know what's in it. And the kids say that once they've had it, um, that often they don't remember anything that happens after that. And that's in our schools right now. And that's uh, one of their crowning achievements.
Wow. But Have you tried, or and have other people tried to bring this to the attention of politicians or police or parents?
Yeah, but people are unaware of it, and until I started broadcasting that this isn't a normal thing to drug children in kindergarten and put them through some kind of mind control conditioning. No one thought a thing about it, including I've spoken to several people that have done my interviews, and it turns out they were in it. So we are so deeply immersed in mind control in this country that it's affecting us in ways that we can't tell. And I think a lot of why I see it is, well, for one thing, I was in it and escaped from it, and became a physician, had practiced for 20 years, then went to Russia for 20 years. So I was away from it for quite a while, um, so that maybe I can see it better. But also 77, and I went in, one of the first ones in, and probably that's, I suspect you're going to find out that when people reach their 70s, if they live that long, that it starts to wear off, and that your perspective changes, and that uh, you become less of a physical being and more of a spiritual being, which I feel happening to myself,
Hmm.
and looking at things differently.
Well, let's now, we have to take a break in 2 minutes. But I mean, there's so much to talk about. Maybe you know what? Jordan, could you please not make it a break? Let's just continue. Because this is just fascinating. And I mean, we'll go back to so that we can continue chronologically, but I mean, right now I'm thinking if this is really still going on, there should be, this isn't just your book. Um, where did it go?
Sparky.
Sparky, Surviving Sex Magic. We'll get to that. But it's not just a book, and your memoir, should be something that is making people take action if this is still happening today. Like, I don't understand how. Well, have you been trying to make that happen? Trying to get the attention of people who could perhaps put a stop to it?
Oh yes, absolutely.
And
And uh, very little reaction because they don't realize it's happening.
but you're
And
telling them, but I mean, you mean they don't believe you? Is that what you mean?
well, until the documents, the CIA admitted this in 2024.
Yeah.
There was no proof that
Right.
anything I was saying was true. Now,
Right.
however, I did spend 20 years in Russia, and I did educate Russia about this, and and I did create an underground railroad that rescued trafficking victims, and
Yeah.
had a had an influence in that society with rebuilding their focus on family and children and away from um, communism and socialism. And but when I came back here, I didn't realize while they got better, we got worse.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And the situation here, coming back, I mean, I was actually pretty much gone for 10 years, uh, uh, working in Russia and the former Soviet Union. And we did thousands of rescues and repatriation and working with governments and building up communities. And we did Russia's first public information campaigns. We did those, even though it went against the mafia. We would go out first thing in the morning, get all the media out there photographing our people, um, carrying out civil actions. So, um, and the Russians were ready for it. They were ready to stop child trafficking. They were ready to stop the demonic influence that had come into their society from the Soviets. And they wanted their religion back. They wanted their families back. Um, so it was very successful. Angel Coalition, by the time I had to leave because the Russian mafia was after me, um, I left in 2010, we had rescued over 70,000
Wow.
children and brought them back. And this is, I can document all of this because it was all done with trafficking in person State Department grants. I was the first grantee of the Trafficking in Persons Office in 2003, and their largest grantee, the three largest receivers of trafficking victims from the former Soviet Union were Germany, Israel, and the United States. And they did not want to hear that the United States um, was one of the main trafficking. And I came to the United States and I spoke at the UN, I spoke at Congress, I've testified in Congress, and I spoke at the State Department. They didn't want to hear it. I had much better response from Israel, um, who actually, while I was speaking to the Congress, Ron Dermer, who later became the at that time very soon after he became the Israeli ambassador to the U.S., he hooked me up with Natan Sharansky in Israel, and a group of Israelis came to my office, and they were very helpful in returning trafficking victims from Russia. And I expected the same kind of response in the United States and got nothing. And in fact, after that, um, the Trafficking in Persons Office actually placed us under the International Organization of Migration, which is responsible for a great deal of the trafficking through their migration programs. Anyway, I'm probably wandering off, and it's going to confuse people.
Well, okay. Well, let's just go back for a bit to the because we kind of you so six to 10, you were with the MK Ultra, and then 10 years old, you were taken into this Sex Magick group.
Yes,
What is
that.
Tell us about that.
Yes, that is Aleister Crowley's program. Are you familiar with him?
No.
Oh, he's sort of the head, the world's head warlock. He's the big poobah in black magic, and his program was the curriculum that he developed. He died before I was born, but this curriculum that he had developed is how you project sexual energy into another person, and they don't know it's happening, and get them to do what you want. And in retrospect, that's what they were teaching, is to get food from the daddies and then to get them compromised, and it became much more sophisticated, so that in the respondees part, it feels sexual to them. On our part, it doesn't feel sexual at all. It's just manipulation. And this is training the honeypots. You look at so many after the breakup of the former Soviet Union, so many of the next level of world leaders married State Department people, State Department wives, and these were the people that were trained, the women that were trained in Sex Magick, and if they were extremely good and beautiful and talented, and then they were married off to world leaders. If they were not so beautiful, not so talented, then they became basically whores for the CIA, and gathered information that way. So,
What did you? I mean, have you been married?
Yes, and my husband has passed, but when I got to the age of 17, I was for 5 years, from the age of 11 to 17, I was at the Presidio. And the Presidio is the northwest corner of San Francisco. It's also an ancient star fort. And the point of the star fort, which is underneath the Gold Bridge, is called Fort Point. And I was there in Fort Point, and I was there with Anton LaVey, who created the Church of Satan. I was there with, and he was about 10 years older than me. I was 11 to 16. And, but Michael Aquino was there, and he was 1 year older than me. And he was, so I didn't see him as the scary ritual uh, demon that he became later, um,
Hmm.
because we were we were both kids, so it was different. Uh, Charles Manson was there. He was there. This was before he became a murderer. He was very smart. He was a good musician, but very prone to drugs. Phil Spector was there. He was he he became a very big music producer, but the music came from the MK Ultra program, and the people at Fort Point were busy inventing new age music, and that that was my milieu at that time. I was a protege pianist
Oh.
and performer, and so they were going to push me forward in the new age music business. But
And these
I
people who
became
were there, like Phil Spector and Manson, like they were invited there by the MK Ultra people, or like how did they were the people who were abusing the kids.
yeah no they were also being abused. These were the people who came into the program like me
Oh, I see.
at they're my age, maybe a year or two older or younger. They were all about the
I
same
see.
age,
I see.
and they were put in by their parents who were also uh, uh, like senior military officials or in the CIA or in the Secret Service,
Uh-huh.
some kind of connection, and then in a secret society. So we were the goats, and you can kind of see how it came together. You had the Temple of Satan, you had the Church of Satan, which was Anton LaVey's deal. You had a whole bunch of kids like me who were smart and theoretically able to travel across dimensions and gather information from other worlds. This is what the theory was. When there's so much in the way of drugs involved, I don't know
Yeah.
how accurate this is. I'm telling it all from my perspective.
So
And
in
they
other words, it was to keep the people, to make this, you were, well, and your families were, and then you were the kids, um, supposed to be sort of the level that would be rising. You would be supposed to be controlling the world.
Absolutely. And under their control. So you have,
Right.
and that's what you've got now. So you have a level of goats, but the shepherds are in control. The goats are doing the concerts, making the music, getting the big bucks, but the goats are in absolute hell. And that's what I realized when I was there. Um, Now, when I was there at Fort Point, there were a lot of other people that were going through the you could almost call it a Stargate program. It's like they take their best and brightest, most talented, and put them out there through a special program. Um, but in order to be a star as opposed to a whore for the CIA, I had to go to hell, literally hell. And I had one experience where I was sent from Fort Point is one side faces San Francisco Bay, the other side faces the ocean, and there's some kind of incredible resonance frequency that
Mm.
flows through that entire structure, and it's such an important structure that you see it on all the backdrops and pictures
Uh-huh.
and screensavers. You're always seeing Fort Point, although nobody realizes it because it's tucked under the Golden Gate Bridge. But
Uh-huh.
it's the point from which all this emanates, and that's the point from which Temple of Set, Church of Satan, the Satanic Bible, which is what we were busy um, theoretically creating. Well, we created it, uh, gathering lore and gathering canon, and then writing it on
Well,
for the Satanic Bible, all came from there. And the records that had been collected by the Nazis were there, and they were using that to create the MK Ultra files, the MK Ultra mind control army, basically. And while this was going on, it was going on in other Five Eyes countries, being the spread by the National Security Agency in a program largely directed by my uncle to make sure that all English-speaking Five Eyes countries had their goats thoroughly mind controlled. And you see that also. Yeah, I talked to people from South Africa, from New Zealand, from Australia, from Great Britain, and from Scotland, and they've all had the same procedures, the same kind of language, the same kind of programming, and this is all tied together. And this is something that people watching this should know. This is Agenda 2030. And this is when all of their work is supposed to be manifest, and they take control of the soul of the world, and they replace God with man. And
okay, but who now is on the top of it? Is it the World
know.
Economic Forum? Who are the leaders?
They're also goats, and you can tell they're not. And the other possibility is that this has just gotten out of control, and there isn't anyone on top. That yeah,
Yeah.
this is what AI can do. It becomes just an amalgamation of mediocrity that just becomes a perpetuating cycle. This may have happened with MK Ultra. They might have destroyed their own minds, their own progeny's minds, and we might just be carrying out a suicidal mission, which became pointless, in 1980, which is the first time they tried it. Because
what do you mean the first time they tried? First time they tried what?
To genocide the sheep. There was going to be a mass genocide and an epidemic, and it was related to the polio vaccine, and it was going to happen in 1980, and it didn't. So
is this did it happen in the COVID vaccine?
That became another round of the same program, and it's mRNA, which is their specialty since the 1950s. They knew in the 1950s that it was a bioweapon. And when I was in medical school in the 1970s, once again, we studied mRNA and that it was absolutely no use as anything but a bioweapon, and that it was dangerous because it changes the population for generations. So we've got almost 70, 80 years of genetic manipulation and mind control. And what has that done to our population? We may just be perpetuating our own demise, like we're part of artificial intelligence.
Wow. This is really, really well. Let me remind people that the name of the book is Sparky: Surviving Sex Magick, and magic is spelled MAGICK. I want to make sure we get in the information about, I'm going to have you back on because this is too much. I'm going to have to read your book and then have you back on because this is a lot. And it concerns me in terms of what the current state of all this is.
Yeah.
So let's skip ahead. What medical school did you go to? How did you end up in medical school?
Well, I escaped from the MK Ultra program when I was 17, and I escaped from one of the blackmail music sessions that was being held out near Monterey, out in a cornfield in Murphy Hot Springs, which is now Esalen, which is a big fancy do.
I've been to Esalen, yeah.
Yeah, well, I was there when it was Murphy Hot Springs, and surrounded by barbed wire. And I escaped when my handler, and all the times, whenever I was in an annex, they took away my shoes. I never had shoes, and that keeps you from escaping. Like, I tried crossing the Golden Gate Bridge barefoot and didn't make it. So I had no shoes, no underwear, because I was dancing and seducing the record executives, and our goal, getting them on the ground, photographed, compromised, and then talking to Phil Spector. And my handler drove in his little red sports car and passed out. So I got the gate clicker and took the car. I couldn't get him out, so I had to take him with me. And yeah, that became a problem later.
Yeah.
And uh, headed north, driving barefoot with no money, no ID, no driver's license, nothing. The car was full of drugs. I was throwing them out of the car, trying to get rid of them, and got as far as got up into Oregon. And I had the school had helped me. My high school had helped me get an early admission to the University of Washington.
Uh-huh.
So I had a place there if I could get there.
Uh-huh.
And getting there with no money, no nothing, no underpants, was a challenge. And this is where a miracle happened, because I had to stop in Grants Pass, which is in Oregon. Had no money for gas. The car was out of gas, and then looked around in the glove box, and there was this huge wad of cash. And it was all the money that my handler had been getting from selling drugs. So I took that. And he also had green stamps all over the car. I don't know if you remember
I
green
remember
stamps.
green stamps.
Oh, they were great. I bought clothes. I bought underpants. I bought everything I needed for college. I got on drug money and green stamps. And showed up at the University of Washington the first day and forgot everything. Remembered nothing except my father selling me. So I knew there was something really wrong in the past, but I couldn't remember it. And I went on to go through college and put myself through medical school and became a radiologist, was very successful and had a technical company. And that's where I later ran into Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes, that leads us to Jeffrey Epstein. So tell us about that.
It was in 1988, and I was invited up to a friend's place in San Juan Island, or Friday Harbor, which was in San Juan Island. The San Juan Islands are this beautiful island chain.
Yes, I've been there.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. So I went up to stay with a friend, Ruth Beebe Hill, who's a famous author. And while I was there, we got invited to a book party by the chief of police of Friday Harbor. And he drove us up there in his big truck to this gorgeous house up on a cliff overlooking the ocean. I mean, it was just spectacular, all glass. And he said it belonged to a friend that was in the CIA, but his wife had disappeared, and he didn't want to live there anymore. And it was very sad and all this. And I was like, okay, why am I here? Yeah. And it turned out it was just the chief of police, Ruth Beebe Hill, myself, and the guy that owned the house, until these pilots started arriving in seaplanes. And probably about 6 seaplanes flew in, and the guys came up the path and into the house, and they're wearing their leather jackets, and they're looking very dashing. And I knew who they were. These were the Iran-Contra pilots. They were always around Seattle. They were just sort of local legend mercenaries, flying drugs and guns back and forth between South America and Cuba. And one of them, or two of them, came over and started talking to me. And it was still like it was me and Ruth Beebe Hill, who was 80 years old at the time. And now the room is full of men. Yeah, it was very uncomfortable. I was expecting a party, a book party, elegant people,
right,
women. and anyway, I was very, very uncomfortable. And these two started talking to me, and one of them was Jeffrey Epstein, and I believe the other was his brother. And he started talking to me, he knew a lot about me.
Hmm.
And at that time, I still had not remembered my past. And so sometimes people would come up to me and start talking to me, and I would have feelings about things like he really made me uncomfortable. I didn't trust him a bit, and but I couldn't have told you why. And he was talking about how they had arranged to buy an island in the Caribbean and how they were going to make a first class, world class resort there and invite heads of state and promise them absolute privacy. So, what they wanted to know from me, because I was a radiologist and was um, working in the field from imaging, was just changing from analog to digital. And so I was one of the people, one of the scientists right on the cusp of that. And he wanted to know if it would be possible to hide uh, information about the guests inside medical data so that it couldn't be detected. And I thought, yeah, you could do that. You could do that with the digital technology. And then he wanted to take me on a tour of the house. And I didn't want to go on a tour of the house.
Yeah.
And then he wanted to show me the various rooms, and I didn't want to see the various rooms. And eventually he said, "This is a beautiful house, isn't it?" And yeah, it was one of the most beautiful houses I've ever seen. He said, "You can have this house."
Hmm.
And he said, "You can have it for cash." And he named the exact amount of money I had in my bank account.
What? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty creepy.
Yeah.
And that made me even more uncomfortable. I still didn't realize my own connections to this past, but and then they wanted to fly me home. So the police chief was trying to leave me there,
Hmm.
and Ruth didn't really want to leave. And the guy said, "Oh, it's okay. We'll fly you right into Friday Harbor. You know, no problem." And I said, "Nope." And I left with the police chief. And he probably wasn't any better than the rest of them.
Probably not if you wanted to go with. But okay, well, we only have how many minutes we have left? Like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Um, I just want to make a connect. I made a connection. And I just want to see if this is true. If it's um starting back with Disneyland, when you had to get these daddies to buy you things and then have them take you on the rides so that they could be photographed and then in a compromising positions. Well, then that's what Jeffrey Epstein did in with his island, with his house, with his everything, with the people, the men who he befriended and who he had participate with with the little girls that he got to have sex with them. That was his MO to get them in compromising positions, and then he'd have control over all of them. And that goes back to the
Mm-hmm.
Disneyland MK Ultra.
Absolutely. He must have looked at my file and thought I was perfect for the job, but I had blocked it completely.
Well, I wonder though if he was, do you think he was, I mean, did he just read about it and think, oh, this is a great idea? Or was he part of MK Ultra to begin with?
Oh,
Or,
yes, absolutely. I think there's absolutely no question about it that all of those people who and he's got the right family for it, the right background. Yeah, he was in the program just a few years behind me. He might have even known me in the program.
oh,
Um, but I had so completely blocked it out that I wouldn't have remembered any of it until later. Um, I had several encounters like that. People who thought I knew what they were talking about, and I had successfully completely blocked it. And
and
I
and
didn't.
how did you, again, we only have like 2 minutes. How did you remember it? When did you remember it? And how did you remember it?
Well, writing Sparky had a lot to do with it, with taking those memories a piece at a time, because each one had a suicide program attached to it, and I had to get past those barbs and write it out, and that is Sparky. That's why I got so completely back into being a child and having to go through a period of thinking magically like children do, so that people could understand sex for children is not sexual; it's just violent, and what it means to a child is these things are happening, and um,
Well, let's just, I want people to know. So again, the book is called Sparky, Surviving Sex Magic, Magick. Now, did you want to give out some URLs, someplace else that people can get information about this?
well, you can get much more information about me. You just Google my name, Juliette Engel. Be sure and spell it EL, like angel. And I've done a series of interviews and lectures. I've written 3 books, Sparky, Surviving Sex Magick, and Angels Over Moscow, which is about my 20 years working in Russia and how the Angel Coalition was built and how it got organized, and all the experience of working with children in sex trafficking. And then my 3rd book is Moscow Traffic, which is about it's a novel, but it's really a true history of modern Russia. And you'll know more about Russia if you read that than you'll get out of anything you see on TV.
Okay. Well, I guess we're at the end. I'm gonna have to have you come back. I'm gonna have to read the book, number one. But also, I'm just really interested in what this means for us today. And have you, just in, 1 minute, have you been hypnotized? Have you like done anything to try to remember more?
No, I think it's really dangerous for someone with uh, the
Yes,
DID
probably.
to be hypnotized,
Yes,
because
yes.
the only way I can handle these memories is to take them and control them one piece at a time. I don't drink. I don't take drugs. I've never taken any psychiatric medications, anything that keeps me from being in
Uh-huh.
control of that, keeping that thread, because the memories are just too much to handle.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much. This was a lovely surprise, and I hope people are not only go and read your book, but that they start thinking about what this could mean in terms of our current society, as
Yes,
far as
Agenda 2030. People
yes,
should look up
yes,
Agenda 2030 and understand what that really means.
yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Juliette Engel. Again, Engel is Engel. And thank you all for listening. You've been listening to Dr. Carol's Couch.